Hey guys, it's Ryan here with Hobbies Man once again, and today we are doing another episode of the Sword and Sorcery Book Club. This is going to be continuing on with the Road to Blackstone reading challenge that I've been doing. So today we're going to be looking at Sword Woman, which is the story that first introduces us to Dark Agnes of Chastillon, right, or Dark Agnes de Chastillon, I guess is how you would say that. But it's a pretty interesting, short story. I would give this like a 4.75 out of 5. Like, it's not perfect, but it's nearly there. It's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. And this was posthumously released, I think that's how you say that, in the summer of 1975 in a fan magazine, I think, or in a paperback, like the Lancer type paperbacks, right? I can't remember exactly, but it was released, like 30, 40 years after Robert E. Howard died, right? So this is a book that, or a story that did not really see the light of day at the time of it being written, but eventually made its way to the masses, right? So it's a pretty interesting concept in terms of like how the story came to be and how the story came to exist out in the world. And I'm very happy that it's collected here in Sword Woman and Other Historical Tales. This is part of the Robert E. Howard collection. I think this might be the last book in the collection. I can't remember. Let me double check here. So it's the 3 Conan books, then The Savage Tale of Solomon Kane, then Bran McMorn, then Cole, then Best of Robert E. Howard 1, then Best of Robert E. Howard 2, then the horror stories, then El Borak, and then Sword Woman, right? So this is the last book in the collection according to the list. And this isn't really a review of the book itself, but I do want to say that there is a lot of inconsistencies in the way that these are printed. I don't know if they're printed to order or not, because I don't think that that's the case. Otherwise, they wouldn't really be cheaper than their actual cover price. But there's something about them that is really odd, because the quality and the feel of them changes book to book, and that's pretty annoying. I actually don't like that. But it is what it is. I think it's a good book. I think the art in this case is really, really good. I like it. It has a very nice dynamic vibe to it that I quite enjoy. And that actually helped me enjoy the story a bit more than otherwise, right? Because I love how this character looks. And, I'm used to thinking of her as this, little, Renaissance-esque kind of character. Because she always wears those, fluffy, weird, colorful clothes, right? But the art style here is a bit different. It doesn't show her like that. It shows her in much more generic, leather pants and flowy, I don't know what to call it, musketeer kind of outfits, and I like those. I think they're cool. And yeah, overall I really, really enjoyed this, and this is probably my favorite piece of artwork. That's the end there, the big climax of the story. So yeah, if you guys have not picked this up, I recommend you guys check out the Del Rey collection. You're gonna get annoyed at the odd quality differences between book to book, but overall it's fine. It's not that big a deal, right? So this story starts with a dedication to warrior women. It talks about Anne Bonny and Mary Read and all of these types of important historical women, and Robert E. Howard dedicates it to them, right? He kind of says, this is about or a story that is supposed to go out to all of these amazing warrior women in history. And so this is kind of the idea. He is trying to write a character that is reminiscent of these women, right? So that's really cool. And the story is divided into 4 parts. Only the first part has a name, and the name is Res Adventura. I don't know what Res means, but Aventura means adventure. So we'll see. Eventually I'll figure out what that means. Maybe I'll mention it in the next book, right? In the next review. So, it opens up with Agnes getting yelled at by her abusive father, who is telling her off because she had just gotten back from the forest, and she spent all day in the forest collecting twigs for the fire, and firewood, basically in general. And he gets mad at her because she wasted all day, but it's supposed to be her wedding day, and she's not ready. And so she's upset about this. She had forgotten that this was her wedding day because she doesn't want to be married. And her father gets mad at her. They start fighting. He knocks her out with a punch to the face. And later she wakes up in their house with a wedding dress put on her. Later, her sister comes in and she's like, "It's your wedding day. You should be happy." And Agnes tells her, "You know, I don't like living like this. I don't want to be married, right?" And so her sister takes pity on her and gives her a dagger. And she's like, "Okay, if you want to stay young and beautiful and don't want to deal with this crap and be like me and mom, like her sister and her mother, take this dagger and end your life with it." And Agnes thinks about it for a second, gets mad or upset at this being the only way to get out of this, and she hides it in her in her clothing, right? Her father eventually comes to get her for the wedding, and as they're going through the wedding procession and the priest tells her the vows and stuff, and they're about to kiss, she actually takes this opportunity to stab the guy that she was going to marry through the heart. In the chaos of everything, she manages to escape and leave, and she's worried that her dad is going to track her, right? So she runs and runs and runs, and eventually makes it past the forest onto a road between two towns. And when she's there, she manages to come across this dashing guy whose name is Etain de Villiers, I think, and he takes her with him on to the next inn, and then they decide to rest there. And at this point, Agnes is not really like an adult, but she's not a child anymore, right? She's killed someone, she has escaped her life, she's looking for something new, but Etain is a very different sort of man than what she's used to, and she kind of falls for his charms a little bit, and she takes him on his word, and she goes to rest. And then this is when part 2 of the story starts, where moments later, actually kind of like hours later, Agnes is sleeping in this room, and a man opens the door to her, and she yells out for Etain. She's like, "Hey man, is that you? Are you there?" And then the guy that opened the door actually closes it up again and leaves. And she's up and awake now, so she decides to figure out what's going on. So she goes downstairs very quietly. She tries to stay away from everything, and then suddenly hears something, right? It turns out that the guy that was coming up to her room was the owner of the inn, and he has left at this point. He has written off somewhere. She doesn't know why. And then she hears two people talking downstairs while they're drinking and eating, and it turns out that it's Etain and this guy called Tybalt, which is the only other guy that was at the inn when they got there. And it turns out that Etain is a rogue of some sorts. He's wanted. He's a man full of trouble and issues, and he's trying to sell her off to Tybalt for a good price. And she gets really angry at this, right? She trusted this guy. It turns out he's a piece of shit, just like every other man she knows. And she enters the room. She gets angry. She has her dagger with her, and she stabs Tybalt, and she kills him. And then she starts to wail on Etain. And for whatever reason, even though, I mean, I guess she's described as tall and willowy, but also someone that's been working her whole life, right? So she's much stronger than your average person. So she manages to kill Tybalt. She manages to wail on Etain, and she manages to hit him so much and hurt him so much that he starts begging for his life because he thinks she's going to kill him. And at this moment, her kind of anger and rage resides or removes itself a little bit, and she decides to talk with him. It turns out that he's wanted, that she was just someone that ended up coming across him at the wrong moment, and he was going to sell her off because he needs that money and that those resources to escape, because a guy that's much higher up on the social hierarchy than him knows that he knows a secret that the guy doesn't want out, and so he has to kill Etain to make sure that secret doesn't see the light of day, especially now that there's social political upheaval because of France's stance against the Holy German Empire at this moment, right? And so she decides to help him, and so she grabs him, she makes sure that he doesn't die, and she takes him to this other place that Etain tells her about, and she decides to help him heal, right? And she, alongside the guy from this new inn called Perducas, heal Etain and make sure that he doesn't die. And this is odd. There's a lot of flipping back and forth here that I find interesting and enjoyable, but also a bit kind of like like, it feels like this needed a little bit more work. It was officially published, right? Someone decided that this was good enough to publish, but I'm not sure that this is something that a Robert E. Howard would have completely decided to publish, right? Because the characterization is a bit odd here, because Agnes flips back and forth a lot, right? Between like caring about Etain or Etain or whatever his name is, and wanting to kill him. And this isn't necessarily a problem. It just kind of feels like, you know, the same kind of things that Conan has, right? Where one moment he's super happy and jubilant at life, and the next he's super morose and angry. But it feels kind of weird in this setting because, like, Conan is a worldly figure, right? So his issues come from, you know, just having lived a lot and knowing how things work. Where with Agnes, it's kind of unclear why she is this way. I mean, she had a horrible, abusive childhood, so that doesn't, like, that makes it harder for her to be good. But also, she has a lot of naivety to her, and I guess that makes sense because she's like a person from, like, in the middle of nowhere, right? She's like a peasant. But it just kind of feels a little bit weird, right? So I don't know. I'm kind of curious about this. I think that her characterization gets stronger, you know, after this portion of the story, right? So in part 3, it's been a week later. They've managed to heal Etain pretty well, and Giscard de Clisson shows up, and it turns out that this guy is friends with Etain and is someone that's also kind of important in this other guy's, you know, group or something. He seems to be some sort of mercenary leader. He's the leader of a free company or something. I'm not really sure what this means, but basically he's like a mercenary boss, right? Or like an army leader, right? And he enjoys talking with Agnes because he thinks that she has a lot of spirit to her. And he finds that fun and interesting because he continues to complain to Agnes about the fact that most men are weak and lazy and don't want to do the thing that they should, which is go out and fight with him. And so he finds Agnes' spirit to be very fun and kind of exciting, right? Because he's not used to someone like that. And he tells Agnes about this woman, Black Maria or something. I can't remember what her name was, but it's this other you know, warrior woman that he knew at some point. And he says to Agnes that she reminds him of her, but that there is only one of that woman, right? That Agnes cannot be like her, even if she wants to, right? And Agnes gets mad at him because she asked him to help her learn how to fight and to be. So the name of the lady was Black Margot of Avignon, and Agnes wants to be like her, and she wants Giscard to help her learn how to fight and to take her in as a soldier for his army, for his mercenary group. And Giscard is like, no, you know, there's only one woman like Black Margot, and you are not like her. You are powerful and strong in Spitfire, but you're not like her, right? And she gets mad. She tells him off, and she's like, you know, all men are the same. You guys all want us to be, you know, childbearers and house warmers and, you know, or house takers and bed warmers, and I'm tired of that, right? And I think that's really cool. I think that it's interesting that she's such a, I guess, like a progressive character. Like, it's pretty interesting. But she gets mad. She goes upstairs to Etain to see how he's doing. And while she's sitting with him, 5 men of dark, brutish type show up. And it turns out that they're friends of Etain, but they're here to actually kill him because they want revenge for Tybalt. Etain explains that, you know, Agnes killed him, not Etain, so, you know, they shouldn't do anything because it was just an unlucky situation, right? And they don't believe that. They're like, this is a woman, she would never be able to kill this man, right? Because Tybalt was a big, fat guy. And so they find it to be ludicrous that she would be able to do this. And, well, Agnes gets mad. She sees that they're going to attack Etain, and she starts to grab his sword and starts beating the shit out of these guys. She manages to kill 3 of them, I think, and then Giscard and Perduca show up, and then she manages to kill all of them, and Giscard is impressed. He's like, oh shit, you are like Black Margot. I want to train you. I want to help you. I want to be, you know, relevant in your story or something like that. And he gives her an epithet, right? Between him and Etain, they give her the name Dark Agnes because she has this dark, like, vibe to her that is really interesting and imposing, and Etain finds it to be very attractive, and Giscard is like, yeah, that's a good name, right? It's pretty fun. I like this a lot. I think that at this point, she fully becomes like a proper warrior woman character. She doesn't really flip-flop between, you know, being nice and naive and being, you know, a hard ass. She's clearly like defined and crystallized into a single character, and I think that this is pretty good. And then part 4 is started with this little excerpt of this thing called the Ballad of Dark Agnes, or the Ballad to Dark Agnes, and it's pretty cool. I liked it. And then we kind of finally finish off the story here. So Agnes and Giscard have been spending a week training, and throughout this week, Giscard has noticed that she is a devil with the sword. She is so badass and so cool, and she takes to the sword like no one else has ever taken, right? And Giscard is a really good teacher, so a really good teacher and a star pupil together create this great synergy and this amazing interaction that pleases both of them, right? And so it turns out that Dark Agnes finally has training, and she's a really badass character at this point. Then a little bit later, Agnes and Giscard decide to head out. They're going to go to meet up with the rest of his company, and they're going to head out to Italy. And then as they're leaving, Etain opens the window from his room and yells to her. He's like, hey, are you not going to say anything to me before you leave? And Agnes is like, no, or, you know, tally is square. There's nothing between us. We are not friends. We are not enemies. We just are. There is no reason for me to say goodbye to you. And Etain kind of disagrees with it, but lets her go anyways. And so Agnes and Giscard are traveling down this road, a very similar road, or maybe the exact same road that she traveled with. She traveled on with Etain earlier on in the story, and she notices something weird. There's this bandit off to the side of the road. He sees Agnes and Giscard and then leaves. He doesn't attack them. He just goes and hides, and then he whistles to his partner. And they notice that there's communication going on. They don't know what's going on, but they know that something is concerning, right? And Agnes really picks up on this, and Giscard kind of ignores her. He's like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. There's something wrong. You know, we're two capable fighters. They're not going to get us if they try to attack us. Relax. And Agnes continues to feel something is off. So she continues to try to get Giscard to take her seriously. Giscard doesn't, and then this ends up leading to his doom because they get attacked by all of these bandits. Giscard's horse gets scared and rears up. He falls. His head gets blown off, and I think he gets trampled by his horse. Agnes manages to survive the fall. She ends up in the river, and she manages to go off and kind of hide, right? She tries to escape, and then the men find her, and she has to fight for her life. She gets hurt. I think her ankle gets sprained, so she can't move properly. And eventually, after she kills a few guys, she manages to hide. But she's worried that they're going to find her and that she's not going to be able to fight them off. And at this point, someone new shows up. And it turns out that it's Etain. He's strong enough to walk around, but he doesn't have enough strength in his arms to pull her up. So he calls out to her. He's like, be quiet, don't shoot me. I'm just trying to help you. And he gives her a rope. She climbs out of this hole that she found herself in, and then they escape together. And it turns out that Etain decided that he still owed Agnes because, all of the situations that happened were mostly his fault. And she showed him mercy, she helped him, and she did so many things for him that he felt that he needed to repay her. And so now Etain is like her sidekick, and they go off to Italy to, do what they were going to do initially. And overall, it's really cool. I really, really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun with it. I really like Robert E. Howard's writing in this. I think it's really fun and interesting. It's very different from what I'm used to. It has a different energy to it, which I think is very cool. He manages to embody this like angry, like kid kind of energy, and then turning it into a more serious, like angry adult energy, which is really, really cool over the week or two or like the month that Dark Agnes goes through this experience, right? So I think that that's really, really good. I think that the crystallization of Dark Agnes's character throughout this short story is also really interesting. I don't necessarily think it's super strong. I think that there's a little bit of something that wasn't quite that well written between, you know, the initial kind of mercy giving from Dark Agnes to Attain. But I think that ultimately it makes sense, right? She's like, well, I knew that I could kill you, but I wasn't going to because you begged me not to, right? Like, there's a certain level of like softness to her that she wants to be implied here, and I just don't think that Robert E. Howard handled it, you know, that well. But I still understand what the character is, right? And I understand where Red Sonja comes from. If this is the basis that Roy Thomas used, right? This makes a lot of sense, and it works really, really well, and I think it's really awesome. And I really enjoyed reading Dark Agnes' story. I'm really excited to see the character in comic books now, and I really want to read the rest of the Dark Agnes stories. There's 2 other ones, and there's a few fragments that are supposed to be about her, but I think it's unclear if they are or not. So, yeah, that's my talk about the Sword Woman story. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you did. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And join me next week for a review of Serpent War, which is the 4-issue miniseries written by Jim Zub for Marvel, where we get to see Dark Agnes, Solomon King, Conan the Barbarian, and Moon Knight team up. And this is kind of the first attempt that Jim Zub had at writing this Robert E. Howard crossover event, right? So join me for that next week on Sunday. And thank you guys very much for watching once again, and see you guys later.